Well, Larry Diamond is a senior fellow, Hoover Institution, Stanford University. Larry, thank you very much for joining us. What are Americans making of President Biden's response to this?
Well, the analytic community of scholars and experts and members of Congress and people in former administration officials, they're pretty upset, if not appalled, by the handling of this. Early reports suggest that President Biden's approval rating has declined, even though the vast majority of Americans favored getting out of Afghanistan. And I really think it's much too early to assess the political implications of this, particularly domestically, but also geopolitically. It's the humanitarian crisis that we need to focus on now.
But Larry, is there surprise there at these images? We are seeing anybody who seems to know a bit about what they're talking about said this was inevitable. Why didn't the administration see this coming?
Well, there was a debate about whether the speed of the collapse, in a matter of a week or 10 days, the entire country imploding and giving way to Taliban conquest, whether it would happen this quickly. But it certainly appears that the administration had ample warnings that the Afghan security forces lacked a will to fight, that the Afghan government was corrupt and cynical, and that when it seemed like the American presence was in its end game, that everything might fall apart pretty quickly. I have a hunch that as we probe this later in a more deliberate way, in a fair and more comprehensive way, we'll find what we suspect now, massive failures, not so much of intelligence, but to absorb at least many lines of intelligence and an analysis that were being shared with the administration.
Larry, I'm interested to know, obviously, here in Great Britain, Boris Johnson spoke. There was a debate in Parliament yesterday. What have the Americans, what have you made of the British situation on this?
You know, it's very hard for us to get information here in the United States on how many British nationals are still in Afghanistan. We know that somewhere between 10 and 15,000 Americans are still outside the perimeter of the airport and needing to be evacuated. I would love to know how many Brits, Canadians, and other allied nationals still remain. We're obviously, I can say, I think, for many Americans, deeply grateful for the British partnership, and really, I think, feeling deeply sorrowful and regretful about the way this has been managed.
A lot of talk, obviously, about the future of democracy in Afghanistan. What about the democratic process in the United States? How damaging has this been to that?
Well, the threat to the democratic process in the United States, which I think is quite palpable and serious at this point, doesn't come from this implosion in Afghanistan directly. It comes from the degree of polarization we have in our politics, the absence of what you have in the United Kingdom, which is neutral, impartial, professional electoral administration, the Republican Party's power grab over the electoral process in many states. We're in very serious trouble in terms of the strength and neutrality of electoral functioning in the U.S. And if the Biden administration is weakened by this and its credibility is weakened, that certainly won't help.
Won't help as well about Donald Trump sort of wading in, criticising the withdrawal, will it, Larry?
Well, I think the hypocrisy of former President Trump really knows no bounds. Without relieving President Biden and his administration of the substantial responsibility that they bear for the way this is being handled. President Trump negotiated an agreement with the Taliban that was riddled with wishful thinking and I think cynicism and a lack of concern for our allies and our Afghan friends and their well-being. And President Trump never expressed any concern about that. He was ready to get out even faster than President Biden is doing. So I don't think anything President Trump says now by way of criticism of this operation has any credibility at all.
The difficulty with that one, Larry, of course, is that whilst that may be the view in California, in New York and in Washington, D.C., in other parts of America, it's not necessarily so.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. And that speaks to how incredibly polarized we are, that there's a part of the country that feels Trump can do no wrong and a part of the country that feels he can do no right. And much of the country isn't open to debate. And it's really, our politics have become much too much an identity referendum. And that has gotten us into very deep trouble in terms of the quality of our democracy.
And Larry, what are you afraid of? What do you think is going to happen next? I mean, we know that there is now a huge and greater threat of terrorism that must be hugely concerning for the American people, as it is for everybody in the West.
Well, I would not have negotiated this agreement that Trump did with the Taliban, certainly not on these terms. And I would have been inclined to look at the possibilities of maintaining a longer presence there. But I think right now I'll repeat and I speak about this in very personal ways, having been involved in a recent effort to evacuate a very extraordinary individual and family from Afghanistan. The overwhelming priority must be to evacuate foreign nationals who are at risk, and Afghan Democrats, civil society leaders, people who cooperated with the U.S. and international mission to rebuild Afghanistan. That's the urgent imperative. Get them out. After that, we're going to have to maintain a very substantial over-the-horizon presence, because no assurance that the Taliban gives is worth the weight of the paper it's written on or the 10 seconds of television time over which it's broadcast. They're capable of tremendous cynicism, cruelty, and duplicity.
So it's by no means over, obviously, but how diminished is the West, particularly the United States, when one thinks about how Russia, China must be looking on all this?
Well, as you probably know, China is now lusting after Afghanistan's substantial reserves of lithium, which is a very precious commodity in the digital age for batteries and other rare earth minerals that Afghanistan has. So China will try and exploit this, and we're going to have to reconstitute our will, our resolve, and our readiness to project force where we need to protect our interests.
Yeah, but it's too late for that, isn't it?
No, it's too late to preserve Afghanistan as a country that's not in the grip of vicious and medieval violators of human rights. But it's not too late to make clear to them that they'll pay a very heavy price if they make Afghanistan a refuge for al-Qaeda or other international terrorists.
Well, you can sort of hear the hollow laughter at that, because after 20 years, America has deserted people after that very argument has been repeated over 2 decades.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm not defending this. I'm just saying at any given moment, we, the West, and we, this precious alliance between the UK and the US, have to take the circumstances we inherit and fight for our shared interests and values.
Okay, well, Larry, thank you very much indeed. Very interesting indeed. Thank you very much for staying up and joining us on GB News. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.